Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now, in today's episode, we're going to take a look at the credit card itself and between credit card issuer and credit card payment network and understand the differences between the two. So, of course, we'll define each of them. We'll talk about what each of their responsibilities are. And, of course, we'll talk about how they work together. And, of course, come on the other end of this, figuring out, does it matter which issuer and which payment network you go with? So, of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, this can be somewhat of a confusing topic, especially for folks who are newer, and that's because if you take a look at a credit card, so we'll put up, I don't know, the Citi Custom Cash, you see a lot of different logos on here, right? Of course, it's blue, you see the name Custom Cash, you also see Citi, you also see MasterCard. So who's exactly doing what, right? Because a lot of times you hear, people say like, I'm not in the credit business, that's Visa or something like that, which confuses the issue because it's not exactly true, right? So we're going to define both of these, and we'll start with the issuer or the lender because that's one that you're probably more familiar with. So if you take a look at this card, again, Citi Custom Cash, the lender is going to be Citi, or the card issuer is going to be Citi, and we know that because the Citi logo is on the cards. Fairly easy. It can get a little confusing, and we'll talk about that briefly, but let's talk about, who the lender is and what are their responsibilities, right? So when you put it on screen here, these are the primary rules or things that the issuer is responsible for. Again, they're the bank or the lender, which means they're the one handing out the money. As a result, they are handing the applications. So, you'll usually apply through their website, or at least their user interface. They're going to do the underwriting, which really means that they'll go through, review your credit history, credit information, and make a lending decision. Will they approve you? How much will they approve you for? So, of course, they're going to handle approvals. They're the one lending out the money. So, if you have a $5,000 credit limit on this Citi Custom Cash card, you're technically borrowing Citi's money. Of course, when you make payments, they're going to facilitate those payments. You'll be paying them directly. More often than not, they're going to be handling the rewards program, and of course, more often than not, they're going to be handling customer service as well. Now, in addition to that, again, there are some instances where this is not entirely true, and so I'm just going to briefly touch on this for your own education here. There are programs like Elan Credit Card that we've talked about before, right? That they kind of come in and they basically bring a prepackaged rewards credit card program and structure for smaller banks and credit unions, right? In that instance, then, Elan Credit, which is like a subsidiary of U.S. Bank, basically, that Elan Credit will be handling a lot of this stuff, right? It's basically just outsourcing to a vendor. Now, you don't necessarily need to know that for the concept of this video, but just keep that in mind in case you go through your credit journey. It doesn't necessarily mean that the bank credit union is doing their customer service, their rewards program, and their underwriting. It should be disclosed somewhere in the terms and conditions at the bottom of the page, of the credit card page, just so you know. So overall, that's kind of how that works. Now, banks, they're pretty good, or they have to be pretty good at this because they're also really in charge of, managing the rules and regulations that the government puts in place around financial products. So, when you're doing underwriting, when you're doing approvals, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. You have to issue certain documentation, certain disclosures, follow certain rules. A lot of that stuff. Now, that's also why you see a lot of neobanks or even, fintechs or even co-branded cards, partner with banks behind the scenes to do this type of stuff, right? Because they don't necessarily want to subject themselves to the rules and regulations. So a perfect example would be the Apple Card, right? The Apple Card is what we consider a co-branded card, and I have a full video on co-branded cards I can link to you down below. But basically, if you look at the Apple Card, you're going to see the Apple logo because Apple is, they're basically the company, the front-facing company, but they're not the lender, right? Goldman Sachs, in this case, is a bank. They're the ones who are a lender. Now, yes, sometimes we can say Apple is trying to basically break into the financial, industry and kind of do it themselves. But for right now, at this present time, what Apple is doing is saying, hey, we actually handle the user interface. I believe we even handle the rewards programs and customer acquisition and things like that. But we don't really want to be bogged down or have to figure out banking regulations and rules, so we're going to partner with Goldman Sachs to do the lending, handle all rules, regulations, disclosures, and things like that. So that ends up making a really good partnership there. So again, those are just kind of some deviations on when these things are and are not true. But overall, that's what the lender does. And again, more often than not, it's going to be the bank that's on the card, right? Now, in addition to that, how this all works, and I have a full video, again, I can link down below, is that, to facilitate a payment, right, you need a few different things. You need a person who walks into a store and wants to buy an item. They need to swipe their credit card at a point of sale machine. So think something like a Square terminal or something like that. But then that information has to go from that point of sale machine, that payment processor, to someone to get it to the bank, right, so they can get that information back really fast so you can get approved for your transaction in a matter of seconds. Well, that's where the payment network comes into play. So on the slide you have on screen, you can see we have Visa slotted in there, right? So Visa, they're just passing information back and forth at the highest level. There's some other things that happen in there. Of course, there'll be more detail in that dedicated video. So what card companies do, card issuers do, is they partner with payment networks to help facilitate these transactions. So that's why you'll see the MasterCard logo on our Citi Custom Cash card. I believe the Apple Card's a MasterCard, but of course, our four major payment networks would be Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. You know, at their core, that's what they do. They're helping facilitate the transaction. So each one of those payment networks has their own payment network, basically. So if it's a Visa card, then it's going to have to route through the Visa payment network and all the way back to the store in a matter of seconds to get the approval. Now, in addition to that, they do also do other things and bring other things to the equation. So it's actually a fun fact. We'll start with this and we'll talk about the benefits. You know, each one of the payment networks, their cards start with a specific digit. So I think American Express starts with a 3, Visa starts with a 4, MasterCards always start with a 5, and Discover always starts as a 6. Now, in addition to that, American Express, while is a payment network, they also issue their own cards. They're a payment network, and they also, are a payment network on other cards as well for other companies, right? So the Wells Fargo Propel card from back in the day, that was still on the American Express payment network, even though it wasn't now, American Express's own card. Now, Discover, they only issue their own cards. So Visa and MasterCard do not issue cards. They're always just partnered with a Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, somebody like that, right? So, and of course, at the time, I think Visa and MasterCard are the most popular out there payment networks by far. But again, American Express is closing the gap quite a bit. So in addition to that, how do the banks pick? What does it really matter? Well, of course, they're negotiating rates behind the scenes, and a lot of this has to do with the merchant fees, the swipe fees, which is basically, when you swipe your card, there's a fee associated to it. So if you've ever gone to like a smaller gas station where you say the cash price and the credit card price exists because, there's people taking a cut of that transaction along the way. So the payment networks are also going to take a cut of that. The payment processor takes a cut, and the bank takes a cut as well. So you can see how this adds up over time, right? Because you're talking about processing a ton of transactions. So, of course, the payment networks set the rules, right? They set the rules for their network, and they also set the prices associated to these merchant fees as well. So I can put a quick chart on screen. We won't get into it too much, but basically, depending on the type of card, the type of card in their payment network, Visa Signature, Visa Infinite, that dictates what the swipe or merchant fee is going to be. Now, in addition to that, why we care is because these payment networks offer what we're calling network benefits. Now, I have a full playlist on the benefits of credit cards, and I can link that down below, as well as the benefits that Visa and MasterCard offer as well. But really what we're talking about here is that, let's say you have a Visa Infinite card, right? Visa Infinite card means a few different things. It used to mean like, hey, you needed a minimum of $10,000 credit limit, but in addition to that, you got all these other perks and benefits. So there could be like cell phone insurance, different levels of purchase and price protection. You could get access like Visa Hotel Collection, primary collision damage waiver, things like that. And while the payment, the lenders, the card issuers kind of like act like it's them who are offering it to us, well, normally it's a network benefit. That's the best way to describe it. It's a benefit of being on the Visa network that you get. And then, they can offer it to us like their own. Of course, we think the bank is so nice, and that's how we want the card, why we want their card, right? So it makes a lot of sense, and that's kind of how you see MasterCard and them kind of competing against one another off of network benefits. Now, that's basically sums it up. Who does what? Again, bank, lender, they handle the money, the financials, the approval, regulations, all that. Payment networks really helping facilitate the transactions, setting the rules of the payment network, maintaining it, of course, offering some benefits, to the card issuer. So the next question is, does it matter? To close this one out, does it matter? Well, to pick the lender, pick the bank, yeah, I think it does matter, because you're always trying to pick the card that works best for you. There are so many cards out there between cashback and travel cards. So I always say start with the card and start with the bank. Pick the one you want. If you're just going to have one card, then you'll probably pick the bank that you like the best, like their user interface the best, or is the most convenient for you. Now, of course, a lot of us have 10, 15 cards, so then the bank matters a lot less when we're really trying to round out our setup. But yeah, so I would say yes, that matters, getting the card that's right for you. Now, does the payment network matter? Well, not so much. And the reason being is while all these network benefits sound great, network benefits are really up to the card issuer to decide to either accept and offer them to the card member, reject them entirely, Citium looking at you, or even come over and make their benefits better. They can offer better cell phone protection if they wanted to, right? And so just because MasterCard World Elite has cell phone protection doesn't necessarily mean a MasterCard World Elite in the Citi profile has this benefit. In fact, Citi is one of the issuers who pulls most of the benefits out, right? So again, you're really left with reading the individual card material, the terms and conditions there, the card member agreement, seeing what's actually offered if you're looking for a specific benefit, more so than saying, hey, I want a MasterCard because of this. It's not a safe bet to assume because it's a World Elite, it offers X, Y, and Z. Now, the last bit of this is, sometimes we talk about payment networks and acceptance rates. Of course, Visa and MasterCard are generally taken everywhere. Discover and American Express a bit hit or miss, though American Express has greatly closed that gap, especially stateside, and the fact that it's really not that much of an issue. Now, if you're traveling abroad or something like that, you may want to have a Visa card just in case, because again, I'm not going to say as they have as much coverage as MasterCard, but they have closed the gap greatly, so much so that I wouldn't worry about it too much and make a decision solely on that alone. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. So, of course, if you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. Of course, question for you guys is, let me know if you do favor one payment network over the other, or specifically one network benefit over the other. I'd love to hear your thoughts and see what you guys like to prioritize. But of course, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you very soon in the next one.